board. Hi, Gabe.
Hey, Leslie, and we are just getting in new numbers from the state of Georgia, so I want to break those down for you right away. You can see them on your screen here. We can tell you right now the vice president's lead is 4,235 votes. As you mentioned, that lead has been growing throughout the day, but that is still a razor-thin margin. It says it's tied there on your screen. It's not an exact tie. It's around 0.08% that separates them. No surprise, if you're looking at a number like that, people are already talking about a recount. Now, in the state of Georgia, campaigns can request a recount if it's within 0.5%, 0.5. So you can see we're well within that margin, and officials there, they're already preparing for it. There are only a few thousand ballots still to count. The Secretary of State said they're already getting ready for a recount. Now, here's how that would work. In this state, they would use high-speed scanners, county by county, and they'd be putting all of the ballots into those scanners. They're going to test them with a batch of hand-counted ballots. They want to make sure those scanners are working, but then they would put all of them through the scanners. Now, the AP has put out a story with some research on statewide recounts. They said since the year 2000, they've had about 31 recounts statewide that they can find. Only 3 of those recounts actually changed the outcome of that race, and the initial margins in each of those 3 were under 300 votes. You can see well over 300 votes right now, but we don't know where it's going to end. Again, Leslie, Biden's lead has been growing, but where it's going to finish, well, that's anyone's guess. Yeah, Leslie, it's been a dramatic couple days. You'll remember the storyline yesterday here in Pennsylvania was the president's lead quickly dwindling. The story today, the former vice president passing him this morning, and now Biden's lead is the one that's growing. These are the latest numbers up on your screen, and I want to give you an actual breakdown. As of just a few minutes ago, the former vice president is now leading President Trump by 14,725 votes in the state of Pennsylvania. That percentage, though, it is very, very close. It says 1% on your screen. Really, though, it's closer to 0.22%. So that lead, though, again, still growing. And remember, this is a massive prize. Those 20 electoral votes, that would put Joe Biden at 273. That would give him the presidency. Now, today we're hearing from officials in the major cities in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, being asked about why the results are unfolding this way, why it's taken a couple days. And they are blaming state law, which actually requires them to count mail-in ballots last in the process. They say if they had been allowed to pre-canvass to start counting before Election Day, this process could actually be done. And I do want to look at the possibility of a recount because people are already talking about that. We can tell you that Pennsylvania state law allows either side to request a recount if it is within 0.5%.
Hey, Gabe.
Hey, Bruce, and we are getting new numbers in on all 4 of those key races that we've been closely watching. I want to start in Nevada. We got some big numbers in just a few minutes ago, and Joe Biden's lead is actually growing in the state. Right now, it sits, let's see if I can write this out, 22,657. That's up about 2,000 votes just over the past hour. And here's an interesting element about that new vote dump. I ran the numbers. It looks like around 5,454 of them went for the former vice president. 2,934 went for President Trump. Obviously, the president has been trying to rapidly close that gap, but that is not going to do it. Of course, we know there are still plenty of votes to count. Only 88% are in, so we're going to be watching that one closely.
Breaks it down for us, Gabe.
Hey, Leslie, we were watching several of those close states, but as you mentioned, it came down to Pennsylvania because as we knew going in, those 20 electoral votes, that was going to be enough to seal the deal for now President-elect Joe Biden. So I do want to give you the most updated results because we can tell you Biden's lead, it's still growing tonight. It's now very close to 37,355 votes. The difference, the margin between the two candidates there, 0.55%. Now, this is an important number here because it's just outside the recount margin for the state of Pennsylvania. If you remember, if you were watching last night, we were talking about that margin. It was right around 0.43%. It was still below that recount margin. As you probably saw today, more ballots came in, and it was enough for CBS as well as other networks to call the state for Joe Biden, and as a result, to call for the election. I should say. I also want to click over and show you what's been happening in Nevada. As you can imagine, didn't get a lot of attention today, but we can tell you CBS has called the state for President-elect Biden. Biden's lead continuing to grow there. It's right around 28,000 at the moment, and that's enough to give him those 6 electoral votes, bringing his total as of now to 279 electoral votes. Leslie, that's enough to be president.
Of this process. Hey, Gabe.
And Lorenzo, there's been all those threats of legal action, so we're still keeping a close eye on these races that haven't yet been called. I want to show you what's been going on in Arizona because it's interesting. It's the one race that's been actually moving in the president's direction over the last couple days. The now president-elect Joe Biden, he still leads, but that lead has been shrinking. Right now, it's right around 18,713 votes. We don't know if they'll be headed to a recount. We're going to find out probably in the coming days here. And then I want to show you Georgia. Just a razor-thin margin in this race. Joe Biden's lead has grown a little bit today, but it's still pretty small. Just over 9,000 votes. I believe the total 9,160 at this hour. Officials there already preparing for a recount. Now, if Biden is able to hold Georgia and Arizona, it would bring his electoral vote total to 306. It's interesting because that's the same number of electoral votes that Trump got in 2016. And I also want to point out Georgia. It's going to be a busy couple months there because not only are they most likely going to be having this recount in the presidential election, they also have 2 runoffs in January for 2 Senate seats because neither of the candidates in those races hit 50%. Those 2 runoffs are likely to decide which party controls the Senate. That's going to dictate potentially a ton over the next year, maybe more. So it's going to be interesting, Lorenzo.
Yeah, all eyes still on